Welcome into Steelers Talks Live, coverage here of Steelers Talk Live here in New Orleans for Super Bowl week. I didn't tell you guys because I'm a little sneaky, but we did get a seat with our Chat Sports crew this week for Super Bowl week here in New Orleans. So that is why we have the change of scenery today. We are currently filming at our Airbnb here in NOLA. You got a little bit of the artwork in the background here. We got some Steelers content for you guys to kick off Super Bowl week. Throughout the week here, I've got Steelers interviews. We're going to be at Radio Row filming our content. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, guys. So make sure you're keeping up with all of our Super Bowl week content here on Steelers Talk. On today's show, the latest Steelers news and rumors. We've got quite a few new mock drafts surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers to cover on today's program because Senior Bowl week was last week, so a lot of new mocks have dropped. Also, ESPN's crazy quarterback scenarios for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a couple of outside quarterback options for the black and gold that we'll react to this afternoon. Then also round one draft targets. I've compiled a list of 11 first-round draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers that I could see the black and gold investing their first-round pick in just a few short months. And then we get into our live Q&A here at the Super Bowl. To get on today's program, you guys can use hashtag Steelers down there in the live chat, or you guys can super chat to guarantee that you guys get on the mailbag today. Last week, we had quite a few super chat questions, so if you want to guarantee that you guys get on this week's mailbag here at Steelers Talk, make sure you guys are super chatting any dollar amount, $1, $2, $5, doesn't matter. If you guys want to get your question on the show this week, you guys can super chat, or if you want to leave it up to producer Chipper here, you guys can use hashtag Steelers, and he will decide the stranglers there that will get on the mailbag this afternoon. So before we get into the content today, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ChatSports. It's one word, all caps, ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. It's just for that first purchase, guys. You can create an account and redeem code ChatSports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And then our second sponsor today is Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. And we're going to get into the content here in just a second, ladies and gentlemen, but I want to give some shout outs to the real ones that showed up at the beginning of today's live stream. So if you guys have already spammed that like button, I want you to type those me's down there in the comment section. Spam those me's for me right now. We got 100 people watching. We got Matrix in here. We got Hot Rod 24. What's up, Hot Rod? Good to see your face, my friend. Hope you're doing all right. Got Isaac in here. We've got Pittsburgh Steelers fan 8. We've got Gary Frank is here, who already put in our first super chat of the day. We got Mr. Deadhead YouTube in here. Donna Elliott. What's up, Donna? Good to see you. And our first super chat of the day is coming in from Gary Frank, who says, let's send Wilson in a draft pick to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. Make a like defense. So when it comes to, we'll talk about Myles Garrett on the show today for sure in our first segment, and then Gary will make sure we put this on the mailbag as well. Are you talking about Russell Wilson, or are you talking about Roman Wilson here? Because Russell Wilson's a free agent. The only Wilson, or Peyton Wilson for that matter, do you want to send Peyton Wilson to the Steelers? We got too many Wilsons here on the Steelers roster, so you got to differentiate for me, Gary. Which Wilson are you talking about? Let us know down there in the live chat. We've got Eric Brown in here. We got MJ DeGoat. We got Jamie Ellis. We got, of course, my girlfriend, Cassie Voth. Cassie, miss you. Miss you a lot. Chip, do you want to come up on here for a second here and say hello to the Yinzers before we get into our first segment this afternoon? Got a bunch of great Steelers fans watching around the world. We are currently in New Orleans, in case you guys missed it. We're going to be interviewing Steelers players, all this different stuff from Radio Row throughout the week. So make sure you're subscribed for all of our extensive Steelers coverage here from New Orleans. With that, let's bring on our producer today. Jeffrey Cooperstein's still back in Dallas, but we've got Eagles fan Jake Chipper with us. Everybody give it up for Jake Chip in the chat right now. Chip, how we doing this afternoon, my friend?
Man, I'm feeling good, Sperry. I'm feeling good out here in New Orleans. It's been a great time already. We've been here just one short day, really, not even.
You've already had some great seafood?
Oh, great. That's what I was most excited about was the food down here and just the environment, everything getting started going down here for the Super Bowl. We've already had a lot of NFL news going down in this past day.
Exactly, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. But before we get into the content today, I want to ask you a question here, Chip. What are your thoughts heading into Super Bowl week? Because you are an Eagles fan, which is why you're with us here in NOLA. And right now, our live poll right now has 70% Eagles support from Steelers Nation right now. How do you feel about that?
I think that's because Steelers fans know ball, Sperry.
Yes,
Steelers
they
fans
do know ball.
The Eagles are the better team than the Chiefs. They're going to get the job done. I guarantee it. In all reality, I just think it's their time. Get their revenge from a couple years ago. The Chiefs' voodoo magic runs out. Eagles are able to run the ball, dominate this game, keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. They get one turnover to really just change the course of the game. And the Eagles walking out Super Bowl 59 champs, baby.
What I'm excited about this week, Chip, is that either way, it's going to be a historic matchup because the Eagles, of course, that infamous holding call prevented you guys from winning 2 seasons ago on James Bradbury it was. And this time around, if you beat them, you take something even bigger than just one championship away from them. You take NFL history away from them. But if Kansas City is able to win this week, they become the first three-peat champions in league history. So I know a lot of people are complaining about the Chiefs and saying they're not going to watch this game. You know you're going to watch this game on Sunday night, man. I cannot wait till this ball gets kicked off at the Superdome on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, one way or another, we're getting a historic game, and I think it's been the best 2 teams all season long for the most part. You could argue the Lions before their injuries were up there, but we're going to get a good football game. There's no doubt about it. The Chiefs play a lot of close games, win a lot of close games. The Eagles, recently I've been playing in some close games, although, I went over the Commanders. Woo! But I think people saying that they're not going to watch a game and, I don't want to watch Chiefs-Eagles. Appreciate some good football, man, because that's just what it comes down to. It's the last football game of the season, of the year. We're not going to have football again for many, many months, so enjoy it. It should be a good one down here in New Orleans. I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, check out the angelic light on Jack Chipper right now. He's got the sunlight right in his face a little bit there. He looks like an angel over there.
Look at this.
So big shout out to Jake Chipper for producing today's live show. Let's get into our first segment here, Chip. The latest Steelers news and rumors. We got mock drafts to react to. We got the Myles Garrett stuff to laugh at the Browns at. We got a bunch of great stuff to get to in this first segment today. So whenever Chip has us ready to go here, we will get things going here on Steelers Talk. Some final shout-outs here before we get into our first segment of the day. Remember, guys, hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get your question on the mailbag today. Pittsburgh Steelers fan 8 is here. Thick Clappa, Donna Elliott, Shower Curtain, Matrix, Somber is here. Gary Frank is here. We got Vibing with the Dogs. We got Hot Rod 24. We got all the good people in the chat right now getting ready for Super Bowl week with us here on Steelers Talk. So without further ado, let's get into our first segment of the day, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. If you're noticing the change of scenery from our normal studio here, it's because I am in New Orleans helping Chat Sports' coverage of Super Bowl 59 throughout the week. So we're going to have a bunch of great Steelers content coming to you from Radio Row from Tuesday through Thursday, all culminating where I'm going to be calling the game Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and Eagles on our main Chat Sports channel. So make sure you go give that a follow as well. But on today's show here on Steelers Talk, the Browns just got some terrible news today. If you're watching the show, I'm guessing you know what that terrible news is, but we'll break that down. Then second up on today's show in the second half, we'll react to 3 new NFL mock drafts that have dropped and who they have the Steelers taking in round 1 of the 2025 NFL draft after the Senior Bowl was held last weekend. Before we get into the content today, make sure you go give me a follow on X. I'm going to be putting out a bunch of clips from our interviews and all this stuff from Radio Row throughout the week. I'm also putting out a bunch of NFL draft content on there all throughout the offseason. Plus, we also have that extensive Steelers coverage for you guys to enjoy on my Twitter. So you can find me at Jack_Sperry. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So let's get into the hilarious story today, guys, that the Cleveland Browns, all right, of course the Browns are going to Brown, And it all came to a head today when superstar edge rusher Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, perennial Pro Bowler, all-pro type of talent, has now requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. And as a Steelers fan, this makes me happy. I am absolutely loving this and seeing Browns fans absolutely crumble on Twitter today. It's absolutely fantastic. All I was told this past year, guys, was that they were going to dominate the division, that Deshaun Watson was going to lead them to their first Super Bowl right here in New Orleans. And guess what? They were once again parked in the basement of the AFC North. And now because of that, they're most likely going to be losing their best player on their entire roster and arguably the best defensive player in the world. But I think we all know TJ Watt holds that title. And listen, man, I think that Cleveland is going to try and do everything that they can to try and keep Myles Garrett. I think that he's just too good of a player to simply just be okay trading. Now, if Garrett makes their life a living hell this offseason, which he does have the power to do, then yeah, they'll probably end up trading him. But even Mike Garafolo on the Insiders today said that the official statement from the Browns is the same thing that they said last week, which was that they're not trading Myles Garrett. They don't care if he's officially requesting a trade. Garafolo said earlier today they are sticking to their stance and do not intend to have any conversations about trading Myles Garrett. And I think what this is going to come down to, guys, is just how convinced Myles Garrett is that he needs to go elsewhere. Maybe the Cleveland Browns approach him with more money, a new contract, make him the highest paid defender in the history of the National Football League, and maybe that fixes things a little bit. Maybe they go to him and say, hey, you want some influence on who we take at number 2 overall in the NFL draft this year? Maybe he'll be okay with that. You know, they're going to offer him a lot to try and keep him in Cleveland because he is such a good defensive player. But, you know, at the end of the day here, it does seem like Myles has put a lot of thought into this, and he wants to go to a team that legitimately can compete for a title. I think we all know as Steelers fans, that is not the Cleveland Browns football franchise. Now, before you ask here, guys, no, he's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. It's just not going to happen. Even if Cleveland does trade him away, they're not going to trade him to within the division, let alone to the Pittsburgh Steelers, their arch rivals. And honestly, I'd be surprised if they traded him within the same conference. I think that they would want to send him to the NFC, to a team that they don't really have to play all that often. And I think that's probably the way it's going to go. So no matter what the Steelers end up offering Cleveland, I just don't think that that's going to be something that Cleveland wants to do. And also, I'm not sure if that's something Pittsburgh wants to do. They're probably going to be given an extension to TJ Watt this offseason, and they're already paying Alex Highsmith a pretty large contract as well. And they like their third rotational guy in Nick Herbig as well. So no, this is not a realistic possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So please, please, please do not ask me about Myles Garrett to Pittsburgh. So let me know down there in the comment section, what is your one-word reaction to the Myles Garrett news? What was your one-word reaction when you heard the news this morning? Let me know down there in the comment section. Can't wait to see some of those reactions for today's pinned comment. I'm going to be breaking down our sponsor today at Game Time here in just a second. While I'm talking about Game Time, get down there in the comment section, find that pinned comment, and answer today's pinned question. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Game Time, which is the best place for you to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. All you have to do is select the Game Time Picks button at the top of the screen when you click into an event you want to go see, and Game Time automatically filters through their entire database to find you the best tickets at the best prices with the best views, so you and your family can get the best possible deals on any ticket you get to any live event. What I love about using the Game Time app, guys, and why it's the only ticketing app I have on my phone right now, is you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event. All-in pricing so you don't get slapped with the crazy fee at checkout, and flash deals so you can get even cheaper tickets the closer you wait to game time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So now we've got the Myles Garrett news out of the way. Let's talk about the latest mock drafts that have hit the NFL presses after the Senior Bowl was held this past weekend. We'll start with Lance Zierlein from NFL Network, one of the most respected NFL draft analysts anywhere in NFL draft media, and he has the Steelers taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas, with their first overall pick in this year's NFL draft at number 21 overall. And I've talked about Golden on the show before, guys. He is an extremely explosive wide receiver who's a a great route runner, fantastic after the catch, can take the top off of a defense. If the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for a true Z receiver that can really do it all from that position, I think that Matthew Golden is going to be somebody that they're going to be looking at big time. Now, he's not quite as good of a run blocker as, say, like a Jack Besh is or, say, like an Emeka Egbuka is, but I think that Golden is exactly the type of playmaker that the Steelers offense desperately needs at the wide receiver position. So if the Steelers ended up with Matthew Golden with their first pick in this year's draft, I would be elated with that pick. Then with Pro Football Focus here, they have the Steelers taking Azariah Thomas, cornerback out of Florida State in the first round, and then wide receiver out of Miami, Florida, Xavier Restrepo. Now, my thoughts on this mock draft, guys, is that you guys know in my first mock draft that I released just a couple of days ago, I have the Steelers taking Azariah Thomas in round 3, all right, which is closer to where PFF currently has their big board. But the person that ended up making this particular mock draft is higher on Azariah Thomas, most likely because he did have a pretty decent week at the Senior Bowl, because he does have those long levers, those long arms, and he's extremely physical in press coverage, which is what the Steelers like to run. So I can see why they have him going in round 1. But honestly, I think that's a little bit of a reach. I think you could probably get him in round 2. And if you're lucky, you can get him in round 3. But then Xavier Restrepo is a name in round 2 that, let's say the Steelers don't take a wide receiver in round 1. I think Restrepo is the type of guy that you can absolutely look at here as somebody the Steelers could potentially be interested in as a slot technician. I think what he showed at the Senior Bowl this week is that he's a really, really good route runner from the slot. He gets open, and he runs very crisp routes. He had a really, really good season playing with Cam Ward there with the Florida Hurricane, or Miami Hurricanes, I should say. And I think that he was somebody that really did a good job as a whole of showcasing his skill set heading into the 2025 NFL Draft. And then the final mock draft that we'll be talking about today, it comes from ESPN's Matt Miller, who has the Steelers taking wide receiver out of Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka, with their first round selection, and then in round 2, taking his teammate there with the national champion Buckeyes and Quinshon Judkins, the running back. All right, so pretty much Matt Miller is saying Pittsburgh needs to get their offense in order here. I'm going to get 2 players from the Ohio State Buckeyes, and we're going to have it be that way in terms of how this offense is going to be built. And listen, man, if you're going to emulate your offense and steal 2 players from a certain team in college football, why not the Ohio State Buckeyes? Because Emeka Egbuka, we've talked about ad nauseum on this show, great run blocker, really good route running technician, especially from the slot. He's great after the catch, all these different things. And honestly, he reminds me a little bit of another Ohio State receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba. But then Quinshon Judkins, the running back in round 2, is another pick that really intrigues me here, guys, because of his physical profile. Now, maybe he doesn't have quite the numbers as some of the other guys in this draft class do, like Ashton Jeanty or Cam Scadaboo or anything like that. But Judkins is bigger, and he's got the 4.4 speed, and he's got that combination of size and speed that the Pittsburgh Steelers could potentially be looking for in their future number 1 running back. So Judkins is definitely a guy that I would be happy with if the Steelers ended up getting. But honestly, guys, there's like 10 different running backs in this class that I would be fine with the Steelers drafting in the first 2 rounds of the draft this year. You guys know I'm in favor of going wide receiver round 1 and then running back in round 2, so I like the formulation here from ESPN's Matt Miller. So who had the best first-round pick out of the 3 mock drafts that we talked about today? Type AT for Azariah Thomas, type MG for Matthew Golden, or type EE for Emeka Egbuka. Let me know between these 3 guys which one is the best fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We talked a lot about mock drafts today, guys. I put out my first 7-round Steelers mock draft just a couple of days ago. I'll put the link to that one in the comments and description of today's show and put the chip in the top right of the screen so you guys can check that out right at the end of today's program. And I really do appreciate you guys making it to the end of today's show, guys. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys for all the support that you give to us here at Chat Sports and here at Steelers Talk. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. First segment in the books, Mr. Chip. Coming up next, some crazy ESPN quarterback scenarios for the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to NFL analyst there at ESPN, Benjamin Solak, talking about some guys like Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, and Derek Carr. So we're going to be talking about those guys quite a bit here in this next segment. But here we go, Chip. We're going to be getting into our mailbag here in just a couple of minutes. We still got 2 more segments to get to. Then we get into our mailbag. So if you have a question, all right, if you got a mock draft question, if you got something in pertaining to a particular draft prospect, if you want to talk about the quarterback situation here in Pittsburgh, whatever the case may be, make sure you guys get your questions in today. Hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get on the mailbag today. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And Mr. Chip, I think we're going to get into our next segment right now here. And I'm really looking forward to this one because we obviously been talking a lot about the quarterback position here on Steelers Talk as of late. All right, like, are they going to bring back Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? All right, that's certainly a debate going on. But I also think that as somebody that has watched Russell Wilson and Justin Fields play for quite a bit, I'm also open to bringing in an outside option. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the second segment on today's edition of Steelers Talk Live. So let's get into that right now with QB scenarios from ESPN. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and on today's show, we are going to be reacting to ESPN's quarterback scenarios when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers here in 2025, and none of them include Russell Wilson or Justin Fields getting the job next season. So today, we're going to be talking about some outside quarterback options for the black and gold right here on Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. And listen, man, ESPN makes you guys pay $120 or more per year for ESPN Plus, which is where you guys could originally see this article. But today, we're going to give you guys this content 100% free here on Steelers Talk because we're nice guys. That's what we do. So make sure you click that subscribe button right now because we give you guys free premium Steelers content here on the YouTube platform. So if that's something that interests you this offseason, make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now. And with that, let's get into the first scenario brought on by ESPN's Benjamin Solak, which is Sam Darnold to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Sam Darnold is somebody that I would actually be okay with if the Steelers decided to bring in. There's a bevy of different reasons for that. I understand he does have some red flags that go along with bringing him in. But let's see what Benjamin Solak from ESPN had to say about this potential fit. While I would usually dismiss the idea of Mike Tomlin signing a free agent quarterback to a significant contract, desperate times might elicit desperate measures. Once again, Pittsburgh is out of range to draft a franchise passer in April, having made the playoffs and precluded itself from a top 10 pick. Will the Steelers look to execute a big trade up in the draft class? I highly doubt it. What about hanging tight at number 21 and selecting someone the rest of the league passed on? Well, that didn't work out with Kenny Pickett the last time around. Pittsburgh has 2 free agent signal callers scheduled to leave the building, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, so Pittsburgh's participation in the Darnold market will be dictated by whether they have an open job. Now listen, man, I actually kind of like the idea of Sam Darnold in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, especially if they do decide to go with an outside option. I know a lot of people in Steelers Nation prefer either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, and even the Steelers owner, Art Rooney II, said that his preference is to bring back either Russ or Fields for 2025. But I think there are some benefits with bringing in Sam Darnold, and probably the biggest reason is he's a great fit for Arthur Smith's system here in Pittsburgh. It's a lot of play action, or at least that's what Pittsburgh wants to do with Arthur Smith calling the plays. They want to be a run-first team, all this different stuff. And I like that the age is only 27 years old. You're not getting a complete retread here. You're getting somebody that has a very recent career renaissance with the Minnesota Vikings. And speaking of the Minnesota Vikings, guys, they implemented the Cognize VR technology this last offseason to help out with their quarterback's development. And you look at the numbers for Sam Darnold from his previous career stats versus what it was in Minnesota this year, and he completely transformed his career using this technology. His career completion percentage versus 2024, 5 points higher. That is a huge jump, almost a yard more per attempt, so way more efficient. The touchdown percentage went up quite a bit as well, over 2 points. The interception percentage still maybe a little bit too high, but I expect that number to continue to go down the more he uses this technology. And the quarterback rating was a lot higher as well. I mean, heck, before the last 2 games of the season, people were talking about Sam Darnold as a potential league MVP candidate. And because of that, Pro Football Focus projects his next contract at 3 years, $41.25 million per season. All right, so that is quite a bit of money, and I understand why a lot of Steelers fans are hesitant to give a quarterback that kind of money, especially somebody that's just had one good season, and then in the final 2 games of his season last year with the Minnesota Vikings, He did not play well at all against the Detroit Lions in the season finale, and then also against the Los Angeles Rams in the wild card round of the playoffs. But I think he fits the system. I think he has the arm talent to play in the AFC North. And hey, if he's coming in here and he's bringing the Cognizant VR technology for the long haul here, I think that's something that's going to benefit the Pittsburgh Steelers, not just in the short term, but also in the long term. So it's time to go back to school here, guys. Give me a grade. How would you grade the signing of Sam Darnold if the Steelers were to make this signing? Let me know down there in the comments section. Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I'm talking about Prize Picks, go down there and give me a grade for a potential Sam Darnold signing. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action this football season. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least two players' stat projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly, and you play just $5. You don't even need to win the projection to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts like player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. And for the big game this weekend, guys, you guys know what game I'm talking about here. I'm talking about Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles to decide the champion of professional football. This week, you get a free pick for one of the quarterbacks here when it comes to passing yards. So you guys can pick, for example, Patrick Mahomes' passing yards, just 0.5. So as long as he doesn't get injured on the first play of the game, you pretty much get that one. And then if you just pick another one, say A.J. Brown, anytime touchdown, you get that one right, and you can make some money with our friends at Prize Picks during the big game. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. So now let's get into some of the other quarterback scenarios that Benjamin Solak from ESPN put in front of Steelers fans in this most recent article. And he says that if Sam Darnold goes to Las Vegas, then his prediction is that Kirk Cousins would be the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is what Ben had to say about this potential fit between Captain Kirk and the Steelers. Don't sleep on the Steelers as a good landing spot for Cousins, who can follow the Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill plan of never ever leaving the pocket. Cousins would be better than Wilson, I think, and good for receiver George Pickens, who is a much better middle-of-the-field receiver than most people think. Listen, man, I think that Kirk Cousins with the Pittsburgh Steelers would be a nightmare. I think it would be terrible to have noodle arm Kirk in the AFC North, in the wind, in the cold, in the conditions, late in the season with the season on the line. I mean, he played in very comfortable Atlanta this year, and towards the end of his tenure there with the Falcons, before he got benched for Michael Penix Jr., a rookie, by the way, he was throwing turnover-worthy plays left and right because he would throw passes into windows that he used to be able to make when he was a younger man and had a stronger arm, but because he's got a noodle arm now, he was throwing a bunch of interceptions and a bunch of turnover-worthy plays, and that's only going to get cranked up to 11 if he's playing in the conditions of the AFC North, where not only do the Steelers play in an outdoor stadium in a cold weather state, but every team they play in the division has the same conditions as well. So this is not something that I think is a good idea for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Solak can take that one and shove it up where the sun don't shine, because it's not happening, in my opinion. Then we get to the second other scenario that he brings up here, and that's if Sam Darnold goes back to the Minnesota Vikings, which probably isn't going to happen, by the way. But he says if that happens, Pittsburgh would then trade for Saints quarterback Derek Carr. This is what Ben had to say about this particular fit. I could see the trade market getting hot for a player like Carr, the next best option for 2 to 3 years of acceptable play. The Steelers coach Mike Tomlin need that plug-and-play fix at quarterback to finally find some postseason wins before seats start to get too hot. Now, my thoughts on Derek Carr, guys, is that I think you could probably do worse than him at quarterback next year, but you could certainly do better as well, especially when you consider the fact that his record in cold weather football games is atrocious. You'll remember he got benched from the Las Vegas Raiders and eventually cut because of how poorly he played in the Christmas Eve game against the Steelers in frigid conditions. So I'm looking at Derek Carr as somebody that would probably be pretty decent to start the season when the weather was good, all this different stuff. But then when AFC North football really came to town in the later months of the years, he'd probably crumble, and that would probably lead to another first-round exit in the playoffs for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what's the best external option for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position? Type SD for Sam Darnold, DC for Derek Carr, KC for Kirk Cousins, or O for other. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. For me, the best option of these three is Sam Darnold. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button for extensive coverage here on the Pittsburgh Steelers all throughout Super Bowl week here in New Orleans, Louisiana. All right, second segment in the books, Mr. Chip. We still got 2 more to go here. And make sure you guys get those questions in. Coming up next, we got our round 1 draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We got 11 players that I would be perfectly fine with the Steelers taking with their first overall selection in this year's draft. And if you guys want to get your question in, make sure you guys use those hashtag Steelerses down there in the comment section or super chat to get in the mailbag here today. Okay, now let's get into the next segment here, Mr. Chip. Let's get into our round 1 draft targets. Okay, perfect. So, Mr. Chip, you want to come on here and say hello to the Steelers fans here while we get some things set up for our next segment here? I want to give a quick shout-out to all the Steelers fans that are in the chat right now. We got Gary Frank. We got Donald Jr. We've got Domos. We got John Stevenson. Says Carr has never played a season in the cold, and he is injury-prone. That's a good point there, John. He's been dealing with a little bit. I think it's a groin issue that he has had as of late. Then Vibing with the Dogs is here. We got Somber. We got Terry Reed. We got MJ DeGoat. We got Walter Bartley. He says, LOL, Kirk Cousins. I mean, Chip, I'm going to bring you on here, man. If the Steelers go get Kirk Cousins, I do not know what I will do. That will be an awful decision by the Pittsburgh Steelers. That will probably cost them another season.
Yeah, I think that'd be a mistake. There's just no reason, in my opinion, to go get a guy like that. After what he showed last year, it's just, you're not taking any steps forward, and you're not really taking any steps back either. You're kind of just sticking right in the middle. And, to me, you either got to take a swing or you got to go somewhere with upside. With Cousins, it's like, dude, you saw last year, he's clearly not the guy that he was. I had a lot of hopes for him coming off the injury. I thought he was still going to be able to get it done. I thought early in the year he looked okay, but you were right. Like, he looked way worse than I think any of us could have even imagined. To be gone after 1 year from Atlanta with all the money they paid him, just not a good option for me. Derek Carr, pass. Hard pass. We said how much Trizzy just hates having Derek Carr and having to watch Derek Carr on his team. There's other options you go. I like Darnold as well. I think that could be a pretty solid option.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the quarterback situation at large for the Pittsburgh Steelers, what's your take on who the Steelers should bring in? Do you think they should bring back Russ? Do you think they should turn the Fields, the young kind of high upside option? Do you think Darnold, paying him all that money, would be worth it for Pittsburgh? What's kind of your thoughts on that, Chip?
Yeah, so I probably hold on to Fields. Not necessarily saying guaranteeing him the starting job or anything, but I think you want to have someone in that room that he's been in there for a year now. Maybe you bring in a Darnold to compete with him for the starting job. Darnold brings over the VR training from Minnesota, and then who knows? Maybe Fields can figure it out, but at least then you're not banking on Fields having to figure it out. You got Darnold in there. I wouldn't want to draft somebody at 21, I believe, because Sanders, Ward are going to be gone. I'm not taking Jackson Dart at that spot. I'm not taking
Jalen Milroe.
Oh,
God forbid.
Milroe, please.
No. We got a $5 super chat here from my man Gary Frank. Says Fields, Ibuka, and take a back in the second. Then we need to look for another back in free agency and strengthen the O-line in free agency. Yeah, I mean, I think that priority number one is to bring back Jalen Warren. I think that he's a really good player. And, maybe he's not the number one option for the Steelers long term, but I think he's certainly part of the solution. He's a restricted free agent, so he shouldn't be too expensive to bring back next year, Chip. I think that Jalen Warren's a really good player, and I think we're going to see him get back probably on a qualifying offer. But, hey, if another team gives him an offer, I'm perfectly willing to match it.
Yeah, Jalen Warren, a good back, and I think underutilized at certain points. I think Najee Harris. I was a big Najee Harris fan, just wasn't really able to get over the hump and become that back that you're willing to pay, a second contract to. Just kind of happens with some of these first-round backs. So I like the idea of, later mid-rounds of the draft, drafting the guy, very deep running back class. Very,
Yes.
very deep running back class. You can get a guy in the third, fourth, fifth round that I think can make a real impact on this team. And I like the idea of kind of having that split back system with Warren in there. Just move on from Harris. kind of a good running game.
Absolutely. John Stevenson coming in with a $2 super chat says Myles Garrett wants to be traded for real news. What does that mean? Traded like, John, maybe you mistyped this. I don't know, but
I think he's just saying like no, it's not fake. Like it's for real.
Yeah, it's real. I think he
traded.
definitely wants to get traded, no doubt about it. I think Cleveland's going to do whatever they really have to do to keep him. You know, if he needs impact or say in the number 2 pick this year, I think that they're going to be probably willing to give him that. If he wants to be the highest paid defensive player in the history of football, I think they're going to be willing to do that. But if push comes to shove here and he really makes their life a living hell, and he certainly has the power to do that here, I could certainly see him being traded to a team like Detroit. I could see him being traded to a team like the Washington Commanders, who I actually think is probably the most likely team that he ends up playing for. But it's certainly not a great situation in Cleveland, and we love it here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, gotta love it here in Pittsburgh whenever we see Cleveland just blowing it all up right in their face like this. But, I think it comes down to what does Myles Garrett really want? And we won't necessarily know for sure 100% where his priorities lie. He did say, he wants to go to a contender, somewhere that he believes he can win a Super Bowl, and that's obviously not in Cleveland. He obviously doesn't think that. I think most people don't think that Cleveland is really close to contending for a Super Bowl. So if they do want to pay him, is that enough? Is this just kind of a bluff, him saying, I just want my guaranteed money, because I believe he has no guaranteed money left on that deal? So, if they do come at him, saying we'll make you the highest paid defensive player, is he like, you know what? Maybe the contending thing doesn't matter to me as much anymore. All of a sudden, now that I'm getting paid. So it just depends where his priorities really lie.
Exactly, man. All right, let's get into our second to last segment here, guys. After this next segment, we will be getting into the mailbag, though, guys. So make sure you guys get those hashtag Steelers down there in the comments section. And make sure if you want to guarantee that your question gets on the mailbag today, the only way to do that is to put in a super chat. So it could be $1, it could be $2, $5, $10, doesn't matter. Super chats get into the mailbag, period. All right. So still got a couple more slots to fill on the mailbag. So if you got a question about the draft, about free agency, about trade rumors, about the quarterback decision, make sure you get those in, because I'm here to answer your questions on the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys. All right. Now let's get into our second to last segment of the day, our last scripted segment of the day, which is round 1 draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's coming at you right now. Round 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft will be a big one for Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh Steelers, because getting the right player at that pick at number 21 overall could change the franchise. And if you draft a dud at that spot, well, things won't be quite as good for the black and gold. Welcome in to Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today I'm going to be breaking down 11 players that I think Pittsburgh is keeping a very close eye on with their first overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft at number 21 overall. They're in Green Bay in a few short months. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you want more draft videos just like this one here on Steelers Talk, I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. We've already put out a bunch of great draft content. My first mock draft. We've put out a bunch of mock draft reaction videos as well on a bunch of different players going over their extensive scouting reports. So if you want all that extensive Steelers draft content all throughout the draft season, make sure you click that thumbs up icon and click that subscribe button. Okay, now, I think that the ideal situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers in round 1 is to get Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, the running back, all right? Because I think, and you guys have heard me say this a bunch of times, I think that getting the run game right is going to be the main thing that decides just how good the Steelers are in 2025. Because in 2024, they were supposed to be led by the run game and instead had a bottom 5, bottom 10 at best run game in the National Football League. They got to go from bottom 10 to at least top 10, most likely top 5, if they truly want to compete for a Lombardi Trophy next season. And, you need a running back to really give you a big upgrade. And I think Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State gives you the best possible chance to make that Ezekiel Elliott type of impact in his rookie season. Incredible contact balance. Of course, he's got home run hitting speed as well. I think that he's also pretty decent as a back, as a receiving option out of the backfield. And I just think that, he's probably going to be long gone before the Steelers end up picking at number 21. But if I'd have to pick one player that I would just absolutely love for the Pittsburgh Steelers to take at number 21 overall, I would definitely pick this kid out of Boise State, because I think he's the complete package. I think he's exactly what the Steelers need. But like I said, guys, unfortunately, I don't think he makes it to number 21. I think that the Raiders at number 6, if Shedeur Sanders is off the board, are seriously going to be looking at him. to be a game-changing running back for them. And after impacts like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs had with their respective teams this year, I think that teams are really going to value what Ashton Jeanty can bring to their organizations. And because he's an elite caliber prospect, I think he ends up going pretty early. So if you can't get Ashton Jeanty in round 1, I would then pivot to getting a really good wide receiver for the future for this offense. All right, George Pickens, the future is certainly uncertain when it comes to him. And, they might go out and get somebody in free agency, whatever, but they also might trade George Pickens. So I think the chances that this team takes a wide receiver in either round 1 or round 2 is pretty darn high. Right now, there are 5 receivers that I think could realistically be there at 21 that I would consider if I were Omar Khan. Luther Burden III out of Missouri is a really dynamic playmaker out in space. He's a great route runner. He maybe isn't the biggest guy in the world, but this team needs playmakers that can get open against man coverage. Luther Burden III can certainly do that, so he's certainly on my list. Matthew Golden, a very similar type of receiver to Luther Burden III, not the biggest guy in the world, isn't going to provide much run blocking as some other guys we're going to talk about on this list below them. But at the end of the day, guys, you got to have explosive playmakers in an offense that's going to have a lot of runaway routes, lots of full field progression reads with a bunch of routes going over the middle of the field. You need guys that can run after the catch, and Burden and Golden are 2 guys that can certainly do that. Another guy that can do that, but is a little bit better of a run blocker, is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Now, where Burden and Golden differentiate themselves from Egbuka, in my opinion, is I think that they are better vertical threats than Emeka is. I'm not sure if Egbuka is going to be somebody that can take the top off of a defense necessarily. He's a little bit bigger, doesn't quite have the same level of explosiveness as Burden or Golden possesses, but he's a great teammate. He's a national champion there with the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's very loyal to that organization as well there at Ohio State, that program, and I think that he'd be a perfect fit in this offense with how much Arthur Smith loves his wide receivers to run block. Another guy that really caught my eye at Senior Bowl this year was Jaden Higgins, the 6'4", crafty route runner out of Iowa State. And you don't see guys with the route running ability, the silky smooth route running ability of Jaden Higgins at his size very often. He's 6'4". He's got a lot of size that he brings to the table, but he's got a little bit of a lighter frame. So even though he's 6'4", he's not the best run blocker in the world. So keep that in mind. But having a 6'4" guy that can go up there, get those tough 50-50 catches in the red zone and down the sideline, but can also get open against man coverage pretty consistently would be a big-time asset for the Steelers offense. And then somebody that had a phenomenal Senior Bowl game and week as a whole, Jack Besh out of TCU. He's been a fast riser. And some people are even comparing him to Puka Nacua because of his ability to get open and then make plays after the catch. Now, I think that he's somebody that isn't quite on the same level as a guy like Luther Burden III or Tedorora McMillan or Travis Hunter or Matthew Golden, but I do think Besh just fits the Pittsburgh Steelers perfectly because he's a phenomenal run blocker. He catches everything thrown his way. And I really question Besh's ability to be a true number 1 in this league. But if you're looking for a true number 2 to George Pickens, let's say they keep Pickens this offseason, or say they bring in like a Devontae Adams, I could see Besh being a really, really good number 2 receiver in this league from the word go. And then I think, he maybe does have the potential to eventually become a number 1 receiver in the future. So shout out your guy down there in the comment section. Which wide receiver do you hope lands in Pittsburgh in the NFL draft this year? Are you hoping they get a round 1 guy? Do you hope that they get a round 2 guy? How early? What round? What player? Let me know down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. In just a second here, I'm going to be talking about our sponsor today at Game Time. And while I'm talking about Game Time, go down there, find that pinned comment at the top of the comment section, and answer today's pinned question. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time, which is the best place for you to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. All you have to do is select the Game Time Picks button at the top of the screen when you go into an event you want to go see, and Game Time automatically filters through their entire database of tickets to find you the best tickets at the best prices with the best seats so you and your family can get the best possible deals on any ticket you get to any live event. What I love about using the Game Time app and why it's the only ticketing app I have on my phone right now is you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event, all-in pricing so you don't get slapped with a crazy fee at checkout, and flash deals so you can get even cheaper tickets the closer you wait to game time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So another option that the Steelers have, and I'd rather go offense, but there's certainly players on defense that they could consider in round one. And I think that there's a list of 5 players on this side of the ball that I would consider. The first one is defensive tackle out of Michigan, Kenneth Grant. Now, we've talked about on this show that this team needs a run-stuffing nose tackle to allow Keanu Benton to go to a more natural position for him at the 5 technique and eventually take over Cam Hayward's job at the 3 technique as a true pass-rushing threat. What Kenneth Grant does, guys, is he is a big body, 340 pounds, but he's also massively, massively athletic. And he can stop the run with ease. I mean, he plays with great pad level. He tackles well. He can hold double-team blocks with ease. And I think that if you can get him at number 21, that is certainly a player that I would like to add to the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive front. But honestly, some of the other options at their disposal, Talik Williams, Deion Walker, some of the other names that are thrown out there, I'd rather make them a day 2 pick if they fall to you, because I do have some red flags in their game, in their games that I don't have with Kenneth Grant. Then we get to the cornerback position here. I got 4 corners that I would consider. First up, Jody Barron, a kind of a nickel extraordinaire out of Texas. He was the 3rd highest graded corner in all of football, or all of college football this past year, I should say. He can play outside. He can play inside. He reminds me a lot of Brian Branch in the way that he can play in a bunch of different spots. He's a great tackler. He's great in man-match coverage specifically, which the Steelers play a lot of on early downs. And I think that, if you're going to spend a first-round pick on a corner, why not make it a nickel extraordinaire that you're not going to find anywhere else in the NFL draft? This is an extremely unique player, and, I think that there are some good corners in this class. Plus, I think that Pittsburgh will most likely address this position in free agency, so I don't think it'll be as high of a need. But if you are going to take a corner in round 1, Jody Barron would probably be the one I would prefer. But if you are really just, gung-ho about going out and getting your starting number 2 corner next year, Benjamin Morrison will probably be my pick on the outside. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays with incredible technical proficiency. He is coming off an injury, but he's one of the best man coverage corners in the NFL draft this season. And I think that he would be more than worth a first-round pick to any contending team out there, like hopefully the Steelers will be in 2025. Then we get to Siobhan Revel Jr. out of East Carolina. And this guy, he's put some really good tape together, but he's coming off a major injury, and he's played against lower-level competition. But, the physical traits, jump off the tape. Long arms, great instincts in coverage as well. He can be a little bit too aggressive at times, can get baited on a double move from time to time. But he's got the long speed, the hip fluidity, everything that you look for in a true number 1 cover corner in the National Football League. So he's somebody that I would accept as well as this team's first-round selection. And speaking of guys with the traits, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss is another guy that fits that description. Another guy that can get maybe baited into a double move from time to time. His technique can certainly use some refinement, particularly in press coverage, but he's got the physicality that the Steelers tend to look for in their cornerbacks. So these are the 4 corners that I would consider if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let me know down there in the comments section, offense or defense, which side of the field should Pittsburgh prioritize in round 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft? I think they should prioritize offense, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Type O for offense or D for defense. Thank you guys for making it to the end of today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. We got more and more Steelers draft content coming your way in the weeks to come, leading up to the big day in Green Bay in just a few short months. So if you want to become an expert on all these top prospects that the Steelers are targeting in this year's draft, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. And until next time, here we go, Steelers. One more segment to go here, Mr. Chip. Make sure you get those questions in. Hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get on the mailbag today. How are we doing on questions so far, Chip? I see Gary Frank is in here. Pizza is goated. Put in a nice question there. Pizza, we'll get you on the mailbag here. We got Hose for Buns. What a name there, Mr. Chip. Unbelievable. We got Charmander and Froky. $2 says, what the Steelers need more is a stronger O-line. Now, here's the thing, Charmander. What I'm going to say to that is I don't necessarily disagree, but what they are looking at right now is we have a lot of youth on the offensive line, and they're going to be banking on that youth movement to really take a big step forward in 2025. Broderick Jones will be having his first season as this team's left tackle. Finally, after 2 years of having to play right tackle, he'll be moving over to the left. Hopefully, he's a lot more comfortable on that side. Mason McCormick had to switch positions this year from the left side to the right side and honestly didn't look too comfortable doing that. So hopefully after a full offseason of working on the right side, hopefully he looks a lot better than he did this year. And then you got Choi Fautano, your first-round pick last year, who missed pretty much the entire season with a knee injury. He's going to be coming back, and I loved his film last year. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player as long as he stays healthy. So, I can see why the Steelers believe in this young offensive line, but I can also see where you're coming from here, Charmander, where you're saying, like, what the heck? Like, this wasn't a good offensive line. Why aren't we trying to make this unit better? And, I can't necessarily disagree with that. All I'm going to tell you is that this organization believes in the young players that they have spent first-round draft picks on at the 2 tackle positions the last 2 years, and they're going to give them their chance to potentially make their mark. Gary Frank with another 5 here says Cleveland is too engrossed in fighting for a new stadium that they forgot they actually need a good team to play in it. Well, here's the thing, Gary. Like, whether they're fighting for a new stadium or not, they're just a bad football team. It's just the way of the Cleveland Browns. It's just who they are. I mean, their team name is an insult in and of itself. I mean, it's the only sports team in the history of sports that, would personally give themselves an insult as a team name. It's just absolutely it's hilarious how much they always shoot themselves in the foot. Oh my gosh, we got Deshaun Watson. We're gonna be an incredible football team. We got rid of Baker Mayfield. Guess what? Baker's balling out in Tampa Bay, and Deshaun Watson was the worst quarterback in the National Football League last year. And it wasn't really even close there, producer Chip. So we love it here on the Steelers Talk, watching the Cleveland Browns absolutely spiral downward. And here's the $2 from Charmander. And he says, what the Steelers need more is a stronger O-line, and he just sent in a $5 here, Chip, so we can get to that whenever it loads. And he says they should sign T. Higgins and get another wide receiver in the draft. Now, the thing about Higgins is, are you willing to pay him $33+ million to go get him? Are you willing to pay over 30% of your offseason budget for T. Higgins, upwards of 40%? Of your offseason budget. And remember, you still got to sign a quarterback. You still got to address the number 2 cornerback position. You still need to address nose tackle. And, I don't necessarily hate the idea of getting T. Higgins. I think that the Steelers really like him, and they're going to make an offer for him. But are they going to be able to match a team like the New England Patriots, who are apparently willing to give him $32 to $34 million per season? That's close to Justin Jefferson level money for T. Higgins right there, who hasn't been a true number 1 receiver on a team in his NFL career. I just don't know if the Steelers are going to be willing to do that, but we'll see. If they get him, I'll be super excited. He is what Mike Tomlin refers to as a goon, which is a big, long receiver that is extremely physical, and that's exactly the type of receiver he loves to have. So I would say the Steelers will probably make a push for T. Higgins, but as to whether or not they will actually win the bidding war for him, I think is a whole other thing entirely. Okay, producer Chip, let's get into this mailbag here and finish up today's live show. Just so you guys know, I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And if you guys want to make sure you guys get that question in and you only use hashtag Steelers, make sure you super chat to skip the line and get on the mailbag today. All right, without further ado, let's get into the mailbag right now. Producer Chip, we got the questions lined up from you guys, the Steelers fans. So here from New Orleans, let's answer your questions on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chip, are we good to go here? He gives me a yup. All right, there we go. Make sure, hey, last second push here to get your questions in. Let me get a little drink here. All right, Chip gives me the green light here, so let's get into it right now. This week's Steelers Talk mailbag is coming at you right now. I am answering your questions on the Pittsburgh Steelers right here from our Airbnb here at Chat Sports' coverage of Super Bowl 59 here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Cannot wait to see what kind of questions you have for me here during Super Bowl week. So before we get into the questions today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we are giving you guys extensive Super Bowl coverage here, not only on Steelers Talk, but also on every single Chat Sports channel all throughout our wide array of channels here at this platform. So we really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So make sure you click that subscribe button to join the most interactive community of Steelers fans anywhere on YouTube. We'll start here with Gary Frank with a $5 super chat. Says, let's send Wilson and a draft pick to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. Make a like defense. So I think that Myles Garrett is not a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, I think that you got T.J. Watt, you got Alex Highsmith. They're both under massive contracts. Art Rooney II, the owner of the team, has already said that they plan on signing T.J. Watt to a massive contract extension that will likely make him the highest paid defensive player in the history of the National Football League, at least until somebody else one-ups him in that regard. But I just don't think you're going to be paying two guys that kind of money. Plus, the Cleveland Browns, there's just no way in hell that they're going to trade him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, plain and simply. They won't trade him to anybody in the division. Frankly, I'd be shocked if they traded him within the conference unless, a team in the AFC gave them an offer they just simply couldn't refuse. I think a team like the Detroit Lions, team like, the Washington Commanders makes a lot of sense here because you're sending Myles Garrett away to a team that doesn't have to play the Cleveland Browns once a year or once every couple of years, let alone twice a year in the arch rival Pittsburgh Steelers. Then going from Charmander, he says they should sign T. Higgins and get another wide receiver in the draft. I wouldn't mind getting T. Higgins, that's for sure, Charmander. If you can get him for the right price, I would be elated by that. He can certainly be a number one receiver in this league, in my opinion. He is long. He can make incredible tough catches down the boundary and in the red zone. And, he's a better route runner than people give him credit for as well. He's actually a really silky smooth route runner, which kind of puts him on a whole nother tier because he combines that really nice size that he brings to the table, the physicality, with the ability to get open against man coverage. So I think he is a number one receiver in this league. How much is he going to cost? Depending on which reports you believe, it could be anywhere between $28 all the way to $34 million. So we'll see just how much money T. Higgins ends up making this offseason, but we'll see how much the Steelers are willing to give up for the former Bengals receiver. So let me know down there in the comments section, is he worth it? Would you pay T. Higgins $30 million or more per season to be the number one receiver for your Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Got another one here from Charmander at $2. Says, what the Steelers need is a stronger offensive line. Now, Charmander, I'm not necessarily going to disagree with you there. The offensive line definitely needs to step up from where it was last season. I mean, their pass protection was a joke, and then, a big reason why this was a bottom 10 run game last year with, in my opinion, two pretty decent backs in Najee Harris and Jalen Warren was because the offensive line couldn't block anybody. And, what sucks about that is that this is an offensive line with a lot of pieces that you spent high draft capital on. Broderick Jones has been a complete disaster at right tackle, and now that they move him over to left tackle, he's going to be a massive question mark. Mason McCormick was a left guard in college, was asked to make the transition to right guard while also trying to transition to NFL-level play coming from South Dakota State, and it didn't really bode well for him in 2024. Troy Fautano missed pretty much his entire rookie season with knee injuries, all right? And he was flagged for knee issues before the draft that year, so it could be chronic. So, there's a lot of question marks on this Steelers O-line, but I'm going to tell you right now, this team believes in this young group of offensive linemen, and they're going to roll with them in 2025. And it's going to be probably one of the biggest X factors for this team, whether they're a good team or a really good team, whether they're a bad team or an average team, is just how good is this offensive line. We'll figure out that question soon. Got one from Pizza is Goated, says Darnold and Higgins would be a top blank duo in Pittsburgh. This is a good question here, Pizza. I think it could be borderline top 10. Depending on how good Sam Darnold is. We saw how good his numbers were this year in Minnesota, but, it is a question mark whether he can sustain that kind of production. Now, we'll see what the offensive line looks like in Pittsburgh. We'll see what the other weapons look like, but I think Sam Darnold showed that he could be a pretty productive quarterback in the right system this year, and T. Higgins, I think, is a true number one receiver in this league, so I think that could be a very fruitful combination for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The problem is, though, you're not going to afford both of them. Higgins is going to cost probably $30 or more million per season. Darnold will probably cost you around 40 or more, so you just don't have the cap space to make that work. But before we get into the rest of your questions here on the Steelers Talk Mailbag, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action, all in time for the big game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, and PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups for the big game between the Chiefs and Eagles. PrizePicks has a phenomenal promotion going on, guys, where you get a free pick for one of the quarterbacks. So, for example, Patrick Mahomes' passing yards, you can take that as long as he doesn't get hurt on the first play of the game and gets 0 passing yards. You win that free square. And then also, if you get just one other projection right, let's say anytime touchdown for A.J. Brown, you are a winner with our friends at PrizePicks for the big game. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. Going from I'm Shifty here, says, do we think Steelers sign DJ Reed? I think it's certainly possible. Reed is certainly somebody that is a really, really reliable cover corner on the outside. He's done it for a bevy of different football teams throughout his career, most recently with the New York Jets. And I think if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got a guy in Joey Porter Jr., a younger corner that's really physical, has a really high upside heading into his 3rd season in the NFL. I think that, getting a really reliable veteran on the other side of him that maybe doesn't have quite the upside of, say, a Joey Porter Jr. would be a nice combination. With Dante Jackson constantly having lapses in man coverage last year and the Steelers playing as much man as they did, I think you want to find somebody that's a little bit better in coverage, somebody that's a bit more reliable. I think DJ Reed, given the right price tag, could certainly fit that need for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then we got one from my man, Pittsburgh Steelers fan 8, says, I think it's time to get rid of secondary coach Grady Brown. Do you agree? And do you think it will happen? Well, I think if it would have happened, it probably would have already happened, Pittsburgh Steelers fan 8. Grady's a good guy for sure. I think that he is somebody that has done some good things in the past with guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick. He helped revitalize the career of Deshaun Elliott this past season, who had a really good year. Joey Porter Jr. has certainly taken some strides from his college film to where he is now. He still has a little ways to go, but he's certainly made strides in that regard. I would be okay if they wanted to replace Grady Brown and bring somebody back in. Certainly Dante Jackson was not a success story of his in 2024. But if they wanted to keep him around, I think he's certainly somebody the players respect. And it certainly seems like at this point in the offseason, he's going to be sticking in Pittsburgh. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in comments section. Name a free agent that you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to sign this offseason. Do you want T. Higgins? Do you want DJ Reed? Do you want somebody else? Sam Darnold? Let me know down there in the comments section. What's a free agent that you want the Steelers to sign here in 2025? Got a question from Christian Andujar here. He says, Steelers bring back Fields and then draft Will Howard in the 4th round just in case he stinks it up. Well, here's the thing, Christian. The chances that both of them stink it up if you have that combination are not 0. In fact, they're relatively high. Will Howard, in my opinion, is probably a backup level quarterback in the league. I don't see special arm talent or playmaking instincts on his film. He's fine. I think he throws with good touch over the middle of the field, and there's certain things that I like about Will Howard's game as a backup. But if you're going to be drafting him in the 4th round as a potential starter moving forward, I just don't really like that plan at all. In terms of Fields, I'd be okay with Fields, all right? I think that, he's got enough upside, and, the AFC is so good when it comes to the quarterback position that, you can get away with making the risk, I would say, of going with Justin Fields. Fields has significant issues as a mental processor. He's got accuracy issues. The touch over the middle of the field and into the intermediate level of the field needs significant work. Justin needs to take a big step forward in year 5 if he's going to reach his potential. But there's no doubt the upside that comes with Justin Fields. If he even becomes a decent NFL-level passer next year, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. All right, so he hasn't gotten there yet. He's a bad NFL quarterback at this point in his career, but he's got some incredible athleticism and playmaking instincts to make up for it. But if he can take that next step forward and let's say, use some of this VR technology that Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, and Sam Darnold have benefited from, I think he could be potentially the next star or superstar quarterback in the National Football League. Then we got one from Nicholas Girdler here. It says, what are the chances that the Steelers get Ashton Jeanty? If I'd have to put a percent chance on it, I would say less than 10% for sure. I think he's probably going to be taken in the top 10, and if he gets outside the top 10, I think somebody like the Dallas Cowboys is going to scoop him up real quickly. So if the Steelers want to go get him, they're probably going to have to trade up for him. I love his skill set. I think he could have an Ezekiel Elliott type of rookie impact for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he was drafted by the Black and Gold. I think he's got incredible contact balance, can make guys miss. He's got home run hitting speed, and he's got some really great vision as well and short area quick. So I love the complete package that Ashton Jeanty brings to the table, but unfortunately I don't think he makes it to the Steelers at number 21 overall. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are a real one, if you are somebody that watches our videos all the time, somebody that bleeds black and gold, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. Really do appreciate all the support you guys give to the channel. $5 super chat coming in from Gary Frank here. My man says, trade Tomlin and 2 picks to the Packers. Let's get some good talent. I mean, Gary, why would the Packers want Mike Tomlin? They have Matt LaFleur, one of the best head coaches in the National Football League. I think he has the best win percentage of any head coach in the league right now. So I just don't know how much sense that makes, Gary, honestly. I'm all for getting 2 picks for Mike Tomlin. You guys know that, if that means that you can bring in an innovative offensive mind, even Mike McCarthy I'd take over Mike Tomlin at this point, as crazy as that sounds. But, what team is going to take him at this point? There's no job openings, especially the Packers. I just don't know if this is a possibility there, Gary. Then we got one from Skyler. Says, should Pittsburgh look into drafting Shiloh Sanders? Probably not. He was getting cooked against Shrine Bowl competition, let alone Senior Bowl competition. So I understand he's Deion's son, so he's going to get a little bit of traction here when it comes to the NFL draft community. But to me, he's Jello Ball, all right? He is somebody that's going to get a little bit of traction just because of his name. But in my opinion, he is not an NFL player. And honestly, I don't think it'd be a good idea to draft him even with a 7th-round pick. Then we got one from Hot Rod 24. My man says, what would a realistic trade up in the draft for the Steelers? I would say if Ashton Jeanty somehow gets outside the top 12 past Dallas's pick, then I think Omar Khan starts working the lines a little bit and says, okay, how can we move up for Ashton Jeanty? And, how can we get this guy in our building? I think that is something that could certainly happen. And then if they fall in love with one of these receivers, let's say they fall in love with Emeka Egbuka, they got to have him. And, they're sitting at 21 and, there's the team at 18 is willing to trade down with them, and they don't have to give up all that much, like a 5th-round pick in addition with their first this year to just move up a couple spots. I mean, I think that's something that Omar is certainly willing to pick up the phone for. But honestly, I'm not sure if a trade-up scenario is the most likely scenario for Pittsburgh this year. I mean, I know Omar is pretty aggressive when it comes to these things, so we'll see what ends up happening. But for me personally, guys, I think that the most likely trade-up situation would be for Ashton Jeanty if he begins to fall. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Who do you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to take in round 1 of the NFL draft this year? Do you want them to take Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State? Do you want Luther Burden, the 3rd receiver, out of Missouri? Do you want them to trade down out of the 1st round even? Let me know down there in the comments section what you guys want to do, and I can't wait to see your responses down there in the comments. That'll be it for this week's mailbag, guys. I really do appreciate all of you for making it to the end of today's show with me. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for extensive and free Steelers content right here on Steelers Talk every single day. All right, Chip. So we are done with our segments here. If you want to come on screen here and kind of wrap up the show with me here. Some really good questions this week, I do say. We've got 119 people in the chat right now. If you guys want to get a question on the show still, you can still super chat. We'll still throw up some more questions here as we get ready for opening night at the Super Bowl tonight at the Superdome. That's pretty exciting, Chip. So Chip is going to change his headset here in just a second, and we'll put up Gary Frank's super chat here in just a second as well. Want to give a shout out to all the people still here. We got Gary Frank, RC Pond, Chuck Dugan is here, William D. Somber. Somber says he wants Benjamin Morrison. I would be fine with Benjamin Morrison. If they don't get a corner in free agency I'd be fine with Morrison. I think he'd be a perfect number 2 corner right away for this team. I don't know if he has number 1 true lockdown upside, but I think he's got really, really good number 2 corner in a man system type upside. I think he's a perfect fit. But honestly, Chip, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to probably get a guy in free agency because there's a lot of good corners in free agency this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the route they go. Get a more established guy on the outside. Play with Joey Porter Jr., who I like a lot. I think, use that draft pick. I don't mind the idea of going receiver there. You went through a lot of your top receiver targets that could be there. I love Luther Burden. I think he's sort of getting, I'm not going to say hate, but not quite the same love he was getting last year because, not quite the same production. But I think that has to do with the decline in quarterback playing, the injuries that Brady Cook had to deal with. So if Luther Burden slides to 21, that'd be a guy. I mean, I think, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Sperry, but last year he was getting buzzed like a top 10 pick, right?
Well, I mean, he was on the field when they played LSU with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., and he looked like the best receiver on the field that day.
Yeah, so
he was insane. And then this year with Brady Cook just playing like a piece of American cheese, just it's like having a sandwich that's just like bread with American cheese. He was that bad of a sandwich in college football quarterback terms. He was that bad. So milquetoast, no arm strength. It was an embarrassment for Brady Cook this year.
Yeah, look, I'd be willing to take a bet on the talent. We saw what he could do last year. I'm not worried about what happened this year. 21 would be an absolute steal, in my opinion. If he's there, I'm running that pick up to the podium.
So you think out of all the guys that could realistically make it to the Steelers at 21, Luther Burden would be your pick for the Steelers, even over Genty. But to be fair to the question, I don't think Genty's realistic at 21.
If Genty is there, absolutely, I would go Genty, but I just don't think he would be there. So then I would go Burden.
Now here's the thing. Now here's a question: would you trade up to 14 or 15 to take Genty, but you have to give up an additional 3rd or 4th round pick to go get him, or are you staying put for Luther Burden?
I would do that. If it's all it's going to cost me is to get up to 15, a 3rd or a 4th, I would do it. I would do it absolutely. I think he's one of the few game-changing running backs we've seen this year, whether it's Saquon Barkley or whether it's Derrick Henry, having that elite run game, which also you need a good offensive line as well. It's not all just having a great talent back there at running back. You need to build up that offensive line, but you got a guy back there who you can get the ball to 25 plus times a game, and he can be your workhorse, and he can really make a difference. I think that's worth a 3rd or a 4th.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I've been on record saying the Steelers need a game changer at running back this year. They need somebody to have an impact for this team the same way Ezekiel Elliott impacted the Dallas Cowboys back in, I think it was 2016, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right. Sounds right.
This is a team that had a bottom 10 run game last year. They got a young, inexperienced offensive line that they're going to keep rolling with. I just don't think a decent running back at your number 1 running back spot like Najee was last year is going to get the job done in 2025. I think you got to probably get a game-changing level talent. The Steelers want to play the game the way that the Eagles play, the way that the Ravens play, where they dominate on the run game and they have a good enough quarterback. Jalen Hurts is certainly good enough to be able to win a ton of games with that football team the way that he has over the last several years. The thing that differentiates the Eagles and the Steelers, they both have good head coaches, I would say. They both have really good defenses, pretty much year in and year out. The difference is the offense, and usually the difference is the offensive line play and the run game. And the Steelers have been trying to build that run game and that offensive line for multiple years now, and they just can't do it. And they're going to have to do it if they want to get Cam Hayward a ring before he retires in 2 years. So, I keep saying, fix the run game, fix the Steelers. Heck, even if they bring back Russell Wilson next year, all right? And you guys know I think Russell Wilson has his limitations. If you have a top 5 run game next year and a top 10 offensive line that can protect Russell Wilson a decent amount, and you get him another weapon in the receiving game, Russell Wilson could win you a couple playoff games and maybe even a deep playoff run, in my opinion. That's just the way I feel. But the run game is so much more important than the quarterback position. We can talk about Fields, Russ, Darnold. If you don't have a run game, you don't have an offensive line, I don't think any of these guys are good enough to bring it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I thought you brought up a really good point comparing them to the Eagles situation, because when you look at the Eagles the previous few years, right, their run game, DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, even going back to that Super Bowl where Miles Sanders wasn't really doing much, they benched and they go with Gainwell, going back a few years, it was still a good run game, right? They still had a very good running game, with Hurts back there, of course, changes the numbers and a great offensive line. But I think you saw when they brought in a true top-level running back like Saquon Barkley, it just elevated that offense to a whole nother level. There's a difference, I think, even between having a good run game that can, get you by and having a great run game. I think that's where people sort of get confused with the whole, running backs don't matter argument is if you have a good running back, that's probably not worth it to take at the top of the draft. But if you can really get a difference maker, someone that isn't just a replaceable guy, that's where the value lies, and that's where the value in someone like Ashton Genty lies.
And this is why, guys like Saquon, guys like Derrick Henry, guys like Josh Jacobs were so undervalued in free agency this year because people are like, oh, it's just the running back position. It doesn't really matter all that much. They're getting older, et cetera, et cetera. But Saquon is making $12.5 million this year, and name one receiver that's been as impactful to their team this year as Saquon Barkley. You will not be able to name it. Not even Jamar Chase was as impactful, in my opinion, to his team. I mean, just look at where the Bengals end up, where the Eagles end up. I understand the Eagles' defense is a lot better. But, Saquon Barkley is going to win Offensive Player of the Year this year, plain and simply, over any other receiver in the game because he was a difference maker. Derrick Henry was a huge difference maker for that Ravens offense this year. And then Josh Jacobs was huge for that Green Bay offense, too. The Steelers need that guy in their offense moving forward. Najee Harris is not that. He's a good running back, not a great one. Steelers need that great running back, and then they need all these young pieces they have on their offensive line to hit.
Yeah, and something you mentioned, the running backs this offseason getting severely undervalued. I saw earlier today, actually, Saquon's cap hit is equivalent to the 27th highest cap hit among receivers.
Yes.
Tied with Darnell Mooney. So that just shows you how undervalued they were, but they showed it this year. And so I think teams will start to at least look at it a little differently. And especially just the general NFL fans where I think it was really, a big issue. They're now seeing a little bit more, okay, we can't just get by with a crappy run game and just hope our quarterback can carry us. Even obviously the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl and, a lot can be said about Patrick Mahomes. Not everyone has a Patrick Mahomes, but even their offense at times struggled this season and they did not have a very great running game with Pacheco being out and Kareem Hunt being 90 years old.
So, final topic here before we say goodbye. Troy Philippa-Buga, my guy, he has been talking quite a bit about Scattaboo here. And that's another guy, and I took Scattaboo in the second round of my first mock draft for the Steelers. What are your thoughts on Mr. Cam from Arizona State? I like him a lot. A lot of people are worried about his speed because he might run in the low 4.6s, but I think the running back position's more than just about speed. Obviously, it helps with a guy like Saquon who hits home runs, but I think that Le'Veon Bell ran a 4.6. James Conner, who's one of the top 5 running backs in the game, in my opinion, ran like a 4.65 and was great here in Pittsburgh. I think that if you have other areas to your game as a running back, you can really be a great impact player, and I think Cam has all of those: contact balance, ability to catch the football, blocking ability, power. I think he's got a lot of those things you look for in a number 1 running back, and I think the Steelers should consider him in round 2.
Yeah, and I like Scattaboo. As you said, he's not going to, wow you with his testing numbers or with some of his physical attributes in terms of, speed, but how many times do we see, just straight speed guys at running back not work out? Because sure, they can break one here or there, but down and down consistency, they don't have it to be, a full 3-down back and bring it each and every play and have the type of stuff Scattaboo has. But you said it's the contact balance, the ability to run through arm tackles and do everything out there on the field. So I like Scattaboo, not, as a first-round guy, obviously. I don't really think when I look at him that he's a guy that has, first-round potential star caliber player, but I do think he's a guy. Oh, they're locked out here. They're locked out here.
I know. Got to open the door, Chip. There we go.
I don't think he's a guy that's going to be, top 3, top 5 running back. Getting locked out there, Trizzy.
Trizzy Trace, you want to say hello to Steelers Nation here? Everybody say hey to Triz. Everybody
Steelers
spam
Nation,
Triz.
Welcome to my city, the great city of New Orleans. I'm so happy you guys could join us out here. Sperry and I are going to have some fun on Bourbon Street tomorrow.
Yes, we are. Bourbon Street, going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're going to have some blast. Steelers fans, just want to say Sperry said it earlier. Shout out to y'all for sending Sperry to the Super Bowl. Without you guys' support, without all of the amazing things y'all have done for the Chat Sports team, we wouldn't have been able to send this crew out here. So shout out to Steelers Nation. Shout out to the Steelers Talk Squad. And hey, Sperry, you're
black and gold family right here.
Black and gold family.
Black and gold family.
For the record, any team that wears red and black, not that cool. Purple and black, not that cool.
Black
Brown
and
and orange, no, thank you. No wonder All-Stars always trade to leave Cleveland.
Exactly.
Always requesting to leave.
Exactly. I mean, they always lose. They always lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Chip, I appreciate you stepping in here. Jeff, of course, Coop is back in Dallas, so we appreciate his support as well. He was helping us build our graphics and all that stuff today. But
shout out Coop.
Unfortunately, didn't get to make the trip this year. But Chip, as the Eagles fan, you're able to step in. So everybody, spam those chips in the chat. Show him your love. We appreciate Chip. He's going to be helping us out all throughout the week with all of our content. Just so you guys know, we got a bunch of stuff coming up for you guys on Radio Row at Super Bowl 59 Media Week on Tuesday through Thursday this week. We have a Steelers captain from 2024 that we are going to be interviewing here on Steelers Talk. I'm really, really excited for that one. We got a bunch of great interviews that we're going to be putting out on the channel as well. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. And make sure you don't miss a video this week, guys, because it's going to be a phenomenal week of Steelers Talk content. We got Justin Gordon here with a super chat that I want to get to here. It's his late-round pick on Desmond Watson, Florida defensive tackle, 6'5", 449 pounds. I mean, man, I like these bigger bodies, and like I said, I want a nose tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, the question is Desmond Watson? I haven't gotten to his film. I've been, kind of combing through all the top guys. Haven't gotten to Desmond's film, but obviously big body, 449 pounds. That's certainly big enough to get the job done on the nose. But if he's kind of considered a late round guy, is he really somebody that can step in right away and be a contributor for the Steelers? I'll get to some of the lower level day 3 caliber guys later in my process here, Justin. But certainly has the frame to get it done. But at the end of the day, Chip, Steelers need that nose tackle. Let me tell you that right now. If you can put Keanu Benton at the 5 technique, oh boy, this pass rush of the Steelers with T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, you add Cam Hayward, an all-pro caliber guy this year, along with Keanu Benton, and you unlock that skill set, oh baby, this is going to be an unstoppable force in Pittsburgh next year. You can take that to the bank. But like we said, you got to get the offensive line right. You got to get the run game right. None of the defensive shit matters unless you get the offense right this offseason. All right, that'll be it for today's Steelers Talk live show. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us till the end. 4 segments. Chip and I chopped it up a little bit today. We got a bunch of great content coming your way throughout the week, so make sure you click that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.